Considering blackness, Go, do you want to share your point?
Not sure, but ain't gonna be sitting black.
Oh, okay. So usually when I have it, so Goldie does have a point on considering blackness, but I asked her to. No. Share whatever share the point you want to share, and then we're going to segue to Nate Boston and his presentation.
I was there.
Okay. Can you come up here, please?
Okay.
I gotta get my glasses.
Okay.
Keeping it black. I'm keeping it black. What you talking about? Black innovation changed the world and the way we live. But if you ask the founding fathers, they have no credits to give. To the men and the women whose contributions made it what it is, instead they take the credits as if they were rightfully his. I'm keeping it black. What you talking about? Most of y'all have heard about the light bulb, hydrogen, and even the iPhone. But I bet you didn't know the first security system was created by a black woman in a black home. In 1966, an African-American nurse by the name of Mary Van Britton Brown is the real reason you have some security and surveillance with voice right now. I'm keeping it black. What you talking about? Black folks for hundreds of years have been prolific inventors and innovators. I guess that's why they tried to keep us quiet and made the world hate us. When they look at us, they see us as black, destitute, and poor. Said we was ugly, favored monkeys, and didn't know what God created us with. I'm keeping it black. What you talking about? No matter how much you steal from us and try to keep us down, we still gonna invent and innovate as long as we are around. Going back in time, and you will see the time the Creator's original plan. God made me black, and I'm very proud to be created from His hands. So when you see me in all my blackness, I want you to fully understand. Look around at all the things created by the black man. I'm always gonna keep you black, so you'll never forget God's plan. Now you know the real deal, why God created the black man?
No doubt. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Goldie.
So tonight, for our village talk, we have a special speaker, Nate Boston. We have a story he wants to share with us.
Yes.
So Nate, you want to come on up?
Definitely.
And he also has written a book, which after he's done speaking, you'll have opportunity to talk with him and maybe get a signed copy of his book. Okay.
Yep. Just gotta press record. It's already recording.
All right. I got it. It's go.
All right.
I got it.
Yes.
So yes, I forgot to tell you, so you might want to turn around because he's going to have the slide presentation there.
Really nice, really cool, straight to the point. Everything that's inside the book is what is going to be presented tonight. Let me see if I can fix the focus. Here we go. So is everybody ready?
Yes.
Thank you everybody for coming out tonight for the Village Talk series. Thank you, Ms. Plaza, for having me. Thank you, Goldie, for that beautiful poem. For keeping it black. That's right. It's all love in here. And it's all love from power to the people. Tonight I'll bring to you my presentation of my book known as the Neo-Renaissance, the Maroons Agenda. It's under my organization known as Each One Teach One Enterprises, because I believe in each one teach one so we can reach one. And that's each other, you know what I mean? From all of our master teachers in our Black conscious community that came before us, I say, you know, peace be unto you, and I said to all. So with that being said, my artist name, I go by the name of Nate Biggs, and I try to speak knowledge of self. I love hip hop. I am hip hop within our people. I learned that from Professor Grip of Public Enemy. And one thing I did was growing up, I learned a lot about knowledge of self from what they call the 5% Nation. And I also learned about knowledge of self from the Moors and the Hebrews and what we call Hebrew Israelites. I come to find out our nationality and our background, that we have an ancient, you know, story. And the story that we're told in our everyday education system is not the story that I came to find out on my own. The stories I came to find out on my own were written by Black scholars. One of them being, my first book was Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro. I came to find out that I was miseducated, that everything that I thought I knew was not what it was. Another book that, you know, I started learning about was what happened to us as a people to get us in this predicament, because I started learning that we basically, we had an empire called Kush, and this Kemite empire Kush basically built pyramids which are still standing today through stone on all corners of the world. You know what I mean? So what was very fascinating about that was I wanted to get more into how we fell to come to the, you know, city blocks to where we're, you know, poor. And I read a book named The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. And that started opening the doors even further for me. Then I got into another book known as Stolen Legacy by Georgian James. Then I came down to further understanding that African people were already here in the North Americas and the South Americas and the Caribbeans. And then I found out in my bloodline that the people that were already in did trade with Africa and had been always doing it for thousands of years. That's when I got and started learning about the Moors. And that's when I went to a Moor science temple and started learning about the nationality and the heritage that we share. Then I started going around worldwide to understand the different tribes that have always been here thousands of years, and they didn't have internet, and they did have forms of technology, and those technology and those things were still written on our temple walls to this day, right? So each one teach one, so I just try to do the work, and Neo-Renaissance is me doing the work and traveling around getting that work done. So I bring and present to you Neo-Renaissance, the Maroon Agenda. All right, so the past is very important, because in order to have a better outcome for the future, you must learn from it. Those who do not learn from it are doomed to repeat it. Hence, what my young brother was saying earlier about Mr. President Trump being back in office. He had 4 years prior, and it felt that we didn't have a standing within his cabinet or his administration to have our voices be heard. Just like the last 4 years we suffered, well, I should say the last 100 years that we suffered within, you know, the wilderness of North America. That we've never had anybody really take time to really, you know, address our concerns. And even if we do have leaders that address our concerns, they get, you know, hurt or taken out. So people get afraid to speak. But one thing that I know for certain is that we're a spiritual people. And our spirituality has been transcended through religion. The Black church has been a vital force in our Black community that has kept us strong as a people, right? And then through that, we had many different movements such as the Nation of Islam through Elijah Muhammad that kept us stronger as well. And then, like I said, prior to that, we had the UNIA. I started learning about Marcus Garvey, right? Having an organization in the 1920s that basically galvanized over 14 million or so Black people, right, around the world without internet, right? And he had an idea of basically everybody banding together under one nation, right? We call it the Black Star, right? The red, black, and the green, right? And basically going back and reclaiming our birthright to the natural resources of the land. Just like like our Arab brothers and sisters do in parts of Africa when they claim, you know, in Saudi Arabia, the oil rights. Well, come to find out, most places in Africa are mineral rich. As a child, I didn't know this. And as an adult, I'm starting to understand that all these wars that are being fought through tribalism is like a big distraction. And then when I joined the United States Navy, that's when I really started seeing what it was all about. It was about money. And then I started realizing that people are really the resources of it all. Because if you can get people to think a certain way, then you can control the future. So, our story has always been a Miss story or a my story. And we're just like individuals in this, right? And at the end of the day, we learned his story. But his story isn't our story. So I came out to make my own story, right? So to make sure it's no longer a Miss story, it's our story. You got it? So with that being said, I've always grew up with this term, Negro, black and colored, right? And then Afro-American, right? And then we have another term known as the diaspora, right? That is all black people all around the whole planet, right? As one, we're melanated. What does melanin mean, right? Melanin means that basically we are able to absorb the light of the sun to basically have a better quality of life on planet Earth, dependent upon our environment. You understand? So with that being said, melatonin, it's not something to regard yourself as, you know what I'm saying, negative. Growing up with darker skin, you would feel like an outcast because our general society is outplagued everything through Hollywood that we look up to popular culture as being fair skinned or light skinned or being Caucasian is like the strongest point of being excelled in society as a status. But truth be told, I had to learn to love myself. And traveling the world, I started seeing through different cultures, especially Asia, that we had a presence there as African people. Most all Asians started off as dark, especially in places like Philippines. You had the people called the Negritos, who still exist there today. You use places like Fiji, India, you know what I mean? You start learning about the Dravidians and all these different things in history. And so there's this book that I would like everybody to get. And it is very important that we understand that there are resources out there that tell our story. But one thing I've learned that all our resources are not there at the same place. You know what I mean? For everybody to get. So everybody is getting pieces. So what I try to do with this neo-renaissance is I try to make sure that all the pieces can be put in one little book, but put it in a broken, simplest format so everybody can understand. Number one, I like to talk about our struggle, right? Our struggle that we have is because we basically doesn't have an economic standing. But that's not true. We had major people that had economic standing through African history that were powerful. And I came to learn about a man named Mansa Musa. So, the ancient past started, our troubles, I would say, started in the year 1492. 1492, that's when Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? Everybody knows that story, right? But we come to find out that truth be told, there's the deeper story than that. Like, when they say founding fathers, that means that something was already there, they just found it. That don't mean they discovered it or they actually created it, right? They just found something that was there, right? That's like I came in this building today and I found the building. So nobody was in here or other people were in, but I tell them I found it. And then I took the people with me, them believing their generations that I found it, so I'm actually in sole control of it. But that I'm not the creator or the originator. So I started learning that we are what we call original people, right? So 1492, the age of exploration and conquest by Columbus, the European black nobility. This is very important to understand, the black nobility, right? The black nobility basically are your aristocrats in Europe that still exist to this day. Aristocrats mean the royal families. These royal families are still there and they still control our trade. And they can still control the trade of us being the melanin people on the planet Earth, right? Because they do it through corporations and business. And that's one thing that I believe that when Marcus Garvey said do for self, he was trying to get us to have that business mindset to compete on a global scale, right? And that's what we have to do for the future, to teach our children to be entrepreneurs again. And that's what I did when I started my Each One Teach One process, was so we could compete, but have that ability to know our past and know our royal lineage, because that's what it was all about, our royal lineage, right? So everybody go out there and get a book called When the World Was Black, The Untold History of the World's First Civilizations. Very important book, right? And another great resource to get by urban intellectuals is the Black History Flashcards. I'll be reading from this today. Basically, it goes into, and it's a quick overview of all the different important things that one needs to know about our beautiful history, illustrious history. All right. So, the black nobility, aristocrats, here's an important fact that everyone needs to know, that we as African people had a major impact in Europe, and we actually are the ones that started the European houses of royalty. That is not contested anymore, that is a fact. Because we had what we call coat of arms, right? See, coat of arms, we had our faces and our heads on there. These heads are known as Moors heads, because we were known not as black in the past, or Negro or colored, right? We were known as Moors. Moors in Europe, Moors on the high seas when we did trade. You understand? And the thing that was important is that all of these European flags in Europe today still carry our banners. They still are there. They haven't been changed. The family and the bloodlines, they still know themselves. So they call themselves the black nobility under the Roman Catholic Church, right? Which is still ran by what we call chivalry or knighthood, which is the crown. And guess what? We still have royal families in Africa and abroad all over the planet to this day that are melanated. But you would never know that if you never traveled. So the number one thing that we have to do in this lifetime is what? Travel. You only know yourself when you go travel and you see others that are like, self, and kind to tell you a different story of your heritage. Next. So we had a one world empire that was ran by Moors. That one world empire that was ran by Moors, the most famous emperor of this Moorish African empire was known as Mansa Musa. Very important person to know. When I first learned about this person in high school, right, they didn't delve into it, right? He just said, oh, you know, Mansa Musa was a rich guy, and he went around, he gave gold to everybody. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I actually did do my research on Mansa, right? And come to find out, while he was alive, he had a staggering net worth of over 500 billion US dollars. If you put that up to that.
That's correct. That is correct. And I was going to read on the flashcard exactly the fact that you stated. And I will say verbatim what you said was correct. They had it says, Mansa Musa of Mali Empire was thought to be the richest person that ever lived. His estimated net worth was exceeded $400 billion, right? King Mansa was a devout Muslim, and his riches were exposed to the world when he traveled through Egypt on his pilgrimage to Mecca. Legend says that he had over 60,000 people with him and that he gave away so much gold during his travel, it made the price of gold fall. Some will say, and our scholars have said that, when he did that, he basically caught the eyes of a lot of pirates or individuals that basically saw us as a way to take us up. Because one thing about us African people, Moorish people, indigenous people of the land, is that we have empathy. We have so much empathy is we're willing to share and give. But I think that sometimes is a weakness and got us into this predicament. But I think another thing that we have is called a fighting spirit. Because we're here to this day still having babies. And through all our struggles, we still are empowered. And I'll tell you why we're empowered. Because you can still have the ability to think for yourself. Until somebody can tell you you can't think the way you want to think, or stops you from doing what you want to do, then you're really enslaved. But right now, you have the ability to still get on your laptop, your iPhone, your mobile device, and communicate and build with your neighbor. And I think the biggest thing that they've done to us and we've done to ourselves is we learned how to turn ourselves as enemies. I've been a victim of it, and I've also been a perpetrator. I can't say that I get along with all my brothers and sisters, but the biggest thing that we have to learn is forgiveness. Forgiveness has been our biggest problem. And I think that, you know, from the Hebrew Israelite training that I also learned, right, that it all started with two brothers going at war with each other. We talk about Jacob and Esau, or they talk about Isaac, right, or Ishmael. It's always two brothers that got beef. And then in the streets, you see Jaquan, and you see, you know what I'm saying, DeMonte. Somebody's always beefing. I'm just saying. You know what I mean. So the biggest thing that we have to do as a people is forgive each other. Forgive us for we know not what we do. Just like Jesus Yeshua the Christ said on the cross on Calvary before he passed, right? He forgave us, the people. So at the end of the day, I believe that's the greatest thing we could ever do to show God's love, is to forgive one another. No doubt. So with that being said, next, the Moors that were in the northwestern part of this African empire spread enlightenment, knowledge, and culture to the lands of Europe during an age known as the Dark Ages. You ever wonder why they call it the Dark Ages? You know why? Because that's the age we ruled. That's the age we were ruling, and basically those in Europe actually had to catch up back to civilization. We bore the light as melanated people on the planet through indigenous culture, and we still had technologies. And so we brought the alchemy, it was called alchemy to, you know what I mean, Europe, and we raised it up and brought those technologies of building civilizations, right? Building castles, building waterways, and things that were based on trade. We basically built that. There's a place in Europe that everyone should study. It's called Venice. And if you learn about a place called Venice in Florence, Italy, around there, you'll learn that Moors had a major impact there. Places like Sicily, and all of these basic ways and waterways, even here in North America. One thing people gotta understand is that there was Moors already doing trade back and forth on the high seas. Mansa was already over here. Mansa Musa was over here with the indigenous tribes. The indigenous tribes of what we call Indian people of the North Americas, who are actually melanated. There's a book called They Came Before Columbus that everybody needs to get by Alvin Van Sertima, which shows that, and it's been proven by historical and artifacts that, and through the different tribes that still exist here to this day, that ain't never went nowhere, right? That started here, still here, known as the Washita, right? And many others, just like Sister Eliza broke down, all the indigenous people. See, we as an indigenous force has to get together to unite under one banner, right? And we have to understand that human rights is the key. That's what we have the United Nations for, but we don't understand how to actually go by, you know what I mean, utilizing that. But we can utilize that by teaching the youth that, and then making a change by actually learning about the politics and the political game of life, right? No doubt. Next. So, the fall of the Moorish Empire, or our one world order, right? How did it happen? It was due to tribal warfare, greed, jealousy, and hate. Do you still see that around today? Right? You still see us being broken by east side, west side. We in Baltimore City. You know what I'm saying? And in Baltimore City, one thing I learned about being more is east side and west side. You got those that have grown up in the east, they never went to the west. You got those that grew up in the west, they never went to the east. And that's every major city we ought to travel in. From New York City to New Jersey, all the way down south to North Carolina, Florida, all the way to the Midwest and Chicago, all the way to California on the blocks out there. I've always known that everybody loves tribalism. It's ingrained in us, right? Territory. We want to protect the loved ones that we have, where we grew up at, the people we know. That's our culture, right? So sometimes it be little things that lead to bigger problems, right? And those problems escalate to something even worse, right? There's a guy named Dave Chappelle, everybody knows him. He used to have a skit that was really funny, right, on his Chappelle show. And he made fun of the gang culture. And one thing I always remember is, it all started because somebody stepped on somebody's shoe at a point. That led to a major disaster that led for over 20, 30 years. Y'all know about these type of stories, right? It'd be one long party. It was another movie I grew up watching called Boys in the Hood, about our childhoods. And I will always remember when Ice Cube's character, Doughboy, took up for his brother, right, Ricky, who was a good boy. Ricky was he was a football player, a pretty boy who stayed out of trouble. He didn't want none of that. But Ricky was the one that was targeted and hated because others wanted what Ricky had. It was all based on jealousy. That goes back to how we felt. You know what I'm saying? We're not happy to see each other build. We'd rather see each other fall so we can have a turn. But not understanding that the good Lord gives everybody a turn. And he gives you a better turn when you're grateful for others. You know what I'm saying? So we got to get back to our roots as spiritual people. And we have to love ourselves, and then our ancestors and the Most High God will bless us to get us out of this predicament, because each one teach one. So, the New World colonies of North America, South America, and the Caribbean islands. After the war, we put ourselves in bondage. Can you believe this? That many different other tribes of indigenous people, right? One of them that's already been proven, the Ashanti tribe of Ghana, has already said sorry for, you know, putting the other tribes that rebelled, that wouldn't get down or lay down, right? We know that term in hip-hop, right? Get down or lay down. Mm-hmm. They basically, you know what I mean, sold everybody into bondage, right? And those that were sold into bondage, it wasn't that they were just sold and taken. No, they fought back. They were prisoners of war. Because truth be told, the word slave is not even an African term. It's a European term for people known as Slavs, who were the actual first slaves that were in bondage, who were Eastern Europeans, right? So Slav slave means that word. And as a Moor, I learned that, you know, words are very important. Semantics in words, that's how they catch spells. Spelling, right? So when they always say we're slaves, it's to weaken us, to make us think that we never had an empire and we were never strong, right? It's to make us, you know what I mean, switch places perhaps. So it's like the story of Jacob and Esau in the Bible, right? But truth be told, no, we were prisoners of war. That's why we still had the fighting spirit. And through being Moors, we became what is known as Maroons. In the Spanish language, of being a Maroon meant those that could not be broken, right? Cimarron, right? Cimarron meaning that, you know what I mean, we were untamed. And so those prisoners of war that basically were forced over here, right, and sold into chattel slavery, they rebelled. And that was the greatest thing that we still have to us, is to fight oppression by rebellion, right? Next slide. All right. The Moors and Maroons rebellion. So as a Maroon, which I descend from, right, and I learned my heritage, is my mother, her bloodline is Mende, and that leads back to the Mandinka Mende tribe of Mansa Musa, and my father, Jamaican Maroon, you know what I'm saying, through the Creole tribe of Sierra Leone. So what I learned was that we always had a fighting spirit, that we never ever gave up. And that's what made me today. That's what made me join the United States Navy to travel the world to learn who I am, right? Through the high seas. As a sailor, I learned that Moors, we love to sail, right? It's even said that we were also known as the Phoenicians at one point, right? The ones that started trade and merchantry through the high seas. So when you do all of these, I would say, genealogy of ancient civilization, you find yourself in that. You start learning about that. They were already indigenous tribes over here, like I said. They came before Columbus. And when you learn that these indigenous tribes are still regarded in the United Nations as being official, right? That's the Watchdog tribe Empress vertices right there. You can't really see the picture right there, but it's in my book. And I posted on the internet. And everyone should know by now, because we're getting the word out. That's all I'm trying to do, is get the word out, do my part in getting the word out. That we still have our royalty to this day, right? And we are royal class people, no matter what. So anyway, one thing I did was I traveled and I went to places like New Mexico, right? I went to Arizona and I went to these places and these museums. And when I went in there, I was wearing this like shirt. It's in my book. I was wearing a hat and everything. And I went to this Olmec statue and I saw a statue of an Olmec that looked exactly like me, right? And I said to myself, this is very interesting. That's called what we call synchronicity, right? The synchronicity played out because the ancestors were telling me something. One thing I learned, right, through our mystical energy of who we are as African people, right, is that we possess direct access to the Most High. But our ancestors in the Most High do not speak to us through words of English. No. They speak to us through symbols. You understand? Symbols. And those symbols and synchronicities are the people you meet, the places you go, and what you're being told without, you know what I mean, the words of listening, but how you feel, emotion. You know what I'm saying? And so, like I said, what partake me to, you know, further go in endeavor of this research was that I started running into little synchronicities like this, right? That were just natural experiences, right? And meeting different people. And through my travels, that started opening me up to be able to relay this message even better to my children, right? Once my children, they started understanding who they are, they started excelling in school, right? And that made me feel great because that means they have a love for self and confidence. So, the rebel Moors became known as Maroons, as I said, right? Which in Spanish means the untamed ones, the ones that would not fall or be broken, right? So, Maroons are spread all throughout the world, which is known as the diaspora. That's what we all are, as one people, right? No matter what we call ourselves, we're still one people. Why? Because we all treat the same. So it is what it is. No matter what you call yourself, you have melanin on the planet, well, guess what? You still at the bottom of their society. You understand? And that society is what we call racist and white supremacy. There's a brother by the name of Dr. Neely Fuller, right? He wrote a book, and the book is very good. It's called, let me get that right here. Pardon me. Pardon me. How do you want right here? See how the ancestors speak?
Long time.
Oh, I got it right here. But this is very important to note. Let me see.
Code and con, thought, speech, white supremacy.
Yeah. Yes, here it goes. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept Textbook against racism and white supremacy. And the 10 areas of people activity and how they affect us. right? So Dr. Neely Fuller, he basically created a code for us to all fall on and rely upon each other when it comes to, having to stand up for our rights against the system of racist and white supremacy. Because he believed that even everyone in all the different races per se, no matter if you're Asian, Caucasian, right, or any other ethnicity, no matter what, you are faced upon it because it's an imperialistic colonizational mindset. And the only way to break that is to stay on code with your brothers and sisters and this unspoken word. It's how you treat each other. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, his understudy known as Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she had a beautiful book that also opened my eyes. It was called The ISIS Papers. And it explained to us what me as an African-American male in America more is facing against racist white supremacy and why it's being done for genetic annihilation. Because supposedly we have strong genetics. And our genetics has the ability to wipe out other genetics, so we always have to be kept at bay. That's what I got from that. Next. So, what makes us and our genetics, right, a threat is our melanocyte gene. Our melanocyte cells, right, come in different shades and hues. But everything has melanin. Even our Caucasian brothers and sisters have melanin. They have what is called uromelanin. Or, am I saying it right? Uromelanin or eumelanin? Uromelanin. Exactly. So more or less, they have it because everybody and every living thing on the planet has to have it in order to exist. And it's all based off of carbon life because life is carbon. So we're carbon-based life forms, right? And carbon is the most high, right? And what happens is coal is carbon, right? But that coal, when it goes through being rough, it ends up becoming a diamond. And that's what we are all inside. We possess the light of being diamonds. And as Moors and Maroons, no matter what, always remember that. You have to possess that light to be diamonds. Next up. So, I like to always say, and in the last slide you saw all was one up there. The oneness of our melanin of being carbon-based life forms is why we're one. But all is well is what I like to say. And what I mean by that is because we still have the ability to generate babies. Until they take that away from us. Because everything in nature has the ability to want to survive, right? Self-preservation. So all is well because no matter what, life can be found anywhere. And with us, no matter if we go through the struggle of having our ancestors pass on or having loved ones pass on, a baby is always being born. No matter what. One thing I love about hip-hop is I love a rapper named Nas, right? We grew up listening to a lot of Nas, Jay-Z, and they also learned a lot of the knowledge itself that was taught through the 5% Nation of Gods and Earth in New York City. Right? And one thing that they put in their music that got me, it was like, Nas said in one song, he said, as a man dies, a baby is being born. You know what I'm saying? So it's always an endless cycle of life. And we know that just because things pass on don't mean the energy regenerates and becomes something new. And when I see my babies being born, that let me know I had a purpose. I had a purpose to want to see my future generations keep going. Because in order for us to know where we're going, you gotta know where we've been. That's what I did. I traveled to learn that we have different frequency of tones of languages. That's the biggest kicker. There's a verse in the Bible, I would say, not a verse, but a chapter in the Bible. They talk about what is called the Tower of Babel. Y'all know about that story? About Nimrod? He created a tower trying to get to heaven. And God and the angels seen that and they didn't like it. And so they smashed it and it was like everybody couldn't talk the same language no more. And now we all speak in different tones or different languages. Right? And that sometimes leads to mistranslation, especially when we pick up books that are spiritual, that lead back to God, but we all got our beliefs on how we're supposed to carry it out to get to God. But it all leads back to God, which is heaven, right? So at the end of the day, no matter where you're coming from and what you're doing, I said, the different frequency of tones and languages and mixing the tribes through colonization, the Moors and Maroons speak in distinct dialects, right? You ever seen that? One thing I love is, when I grew up here in the northern East Coast, right? I also lived down south in North Carolina. Started from New Jersey, came down to Baltimore, and then moved down to Durham, North Carolina growing up. And one thing I noticed was the different influence of the language and the speech of others, but I still could understand everybody. See, and then looking at our different artists and entertainers, right? That came, such as Richard Pryor, Red Fox. You know what I'm saying? We all watched Him for the Sun. We all watched, you know what I mean, the Jeffersons. You know, you see, one thing about, our people is that we know how to express ourselves in many different forms. Eddie Murphy, like, you know, and that's the beauty of who we are. We have different ways and frequencies that we express ourselves. Just like we all have unique fingerprints, we all are just different frequencies of expression that are walking around and sharing it, and we share it through our art. You know what I mean? And so that's why I became an artist. I became, you know what I mean, an MC. I like to take complex ideas and break them down and, you know, use rhyme to do so. You know what I mean? So more or less, I noticed that the distinct dialects based on regional environments were known as mixtures called Creole, right? And Patois, right? Pidgin, which all just means broken English. Color, Geechee, Southern slang, right? And Northern swag, right? So many different mixings, and we keep creating new ways that we're saying it. Like for instance, in my era, we used to say, stop fronting. Now the kids say, stop capping. So it's like, everything is transcendent, but the meaning is still the same, right? It's just different ways of still explaining yourself, and that's the beauty of it, right? Is that our future generations are adapting to new frequencies of the earth, and the earth, I believe, is one, right? It's like, it's a great mother, and it shifts, and it's shifting dimensional planes, so we are nomadic people. We don't just stay in one place. One thing I learned, especially from my elders, right, was that we were known as the Twa Pygmy people that first inhabited all the lands before great shiftings of the lands took place. The great shifting of the lands, known as Pangea at the time, or what you would call it through research. We basically are the ones that first venerated the idea of nature and God and the woman, understanding the birth of man and woman to create life, right? So that is the beauty, and we put it through our hieroglyphics, right? Which were the first comic books. You know what I'm saying? And so I decided to do the same here. I started going to our museums that we still have that are beautiful all throughout Baltimore, and especially if no one hasn't been there, please take a trip to DC, to the African American Museum in DC and the Reginald F. Lewis Museum here in Baltimore City, because they have great insights of information of our culture there that are there for our children to learn and spread the knowledge, right? And we talk about the Atlantic Creoles, who we are as a people, a mixture, right? That keeps going and changing. And 20, 30 years from now, it ain't gonna be the same, but it still will be the same because it's still blackness as our people. So, unity consciousness. I said all I've said tonight is because it's all about understanding that no matter where we are in a given point in time on this great planet Earth, we still have one thing in common. We know who we are. We know we're one, right? Through our mind, through our morality, right? Get it? Morality, right? When you use more in every word, you'll start seeing and noticing how the spellings work, right? How the masculine spellings work, right? And you'll say, I want more, right? I want more knowledge. I want to learn more of who I am. You'll learn that we basically invented almost everything. I don't say we did invent everything. You know, because the story that's told through general media or the public education system is to always cover up that at the source and root of everything was always a black man or a woman that had the idea, that generated that idea, but to capitalize on that idea, it wasn't us that did that because it's the capitalists that did that. It's back to those merchant families that I was telling you about. Those nobility families that know how to capitalize on our ideas by basically investing and stealing the rights and publishing. That's why everybody in this room, you gotta be a creator, you gotta be an artist. You gotta learn about publishing and rights of your work that you create with intellectual property. And then you can share your property. Now you got the new technology to do it through NFTs and social media, right? Now you can create your own brand. The world's a smaller place because of the internet. You can now become your own superstar. Believe in yourself and others will love you as well. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm doing. So we are inventors. We basically do things when we create is through love, peace, truth, freedom, and justice, right? So at a specific moment in time, the Most High God grants us Moors and Maroons the ability to communicate with each other through raising our vibration of higher awareness. Only when we have it in our hearts, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, to allow us to unify and build with our brothers and sisters. Because we're not gonna build in conflict. If you two can't agree, there is no agreement, there is nothing to build. You only destroy. But if two can agree, then it becomes one. And that idea spreads on, and I'll tell you how that works. We love Michael Jackson, we love Michael Jordan, and we love all other of our sports and entertainers that have came, right? But one thing that made them who they are is because we loved them first. You did? If we, the people, didn't love them first, they would be who they are today, right? Because at the end of the day, what we do is set the trends and we create how things are gonna go, right? And then from there, the world grabs onto it. Like my daughters, they love a thing called K-pop now. That ain't nothing but R&B and that we did in the 80s and the 90s, and that came from soul music in the 70s. That came from the rhythm and blues and the jazz, you know what I'm saying? There ain't nothing new under this sun. Everything is still shining.
Sorry to interrupt. You say K-pop?
Korean pop.
Yeah.
Korean pop, J-pop, it ain't nothing new. They just doing it in their language, but they copying our styles, like trap music. Japan has trap music all over. You know what I'm saying? They emulate us. They got the dress. Everybody got the swag. Everybody wants to be us, but then nobody want to take our pain, right? But you know what? That's what makes us special, because we still go through the pain, but we come with the sunshine and the rain. You know what I'm saying? That's right. So, the frequency, right? Enlightenment, culture, arts, and frequency through the conduit of music, poetry, dance, and innovation. And when we do that, guess what we create, y'all? A renaissance. Next one. And one of the greatest renaissance we had, we can talk about the European renaissance. That was to enlighten our brothers in Europe to be who they are today. But they forgot that we the ones that sparked that. So we did it again for us. We did it in Harlem, New York City, where the great minds in America all went and got together, right? Our intellectuals, right? Our singers, songwriters. Mrs. Billie Holiday, you know who that is right there? I was talking about my elders here in Baltimore City, who Billie Holiday is. Very important, you know what I mean? The Harlem Renaissance basically sparked everyone, right? That were innovators to come together and be themselves. That's it. Just be themselves. You create when you yourself, because you naturally are taken in with acceptance of yourself, and people accept you more, and you can just be free to